everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, along with Brian Murphy, and we are inside Circa in Las Vegas. We're out here for their Circa Million and Survivor contests. Two very, very cool things that if you have a chance to drop by in Las Vegas and check out these contests, you got a few more weeks to sign up. The Survivor contest is what it sounds like. You pick teams, and if you get them all right each week to win, Survivor contest. It's just like any other, but in this one, you can become a millionaire if you win. And last night, actually, Murph, when we were out, we ran into the winners from last year, and
they are blue blazers.
They're millionaires.
Looking like ballers.
Right, they got these blue blazers for being the winners.
Matching,
and they looked pretty cool. So if you have a chance to come out,
it's a hell of a club to join.
It's not a bad place to visit. And last year, $9.2 million was split between 4 winners in the Survivor contest. And with the Million contest, you pick 5 teams against the spread every week. So you sign up out here, but you're obviously playing back at home. You don't have to fly to Vegas every week to do this. So if you got a flight that's coming out this way, or you got a stop or something like that, that might be a good thing to do before the season starts, because you could become a millionaire. We are not millionaires because we're not usually good at picking games all that well, but we're going to try that anyway today. We're going to try for you, Murph, to project the Minnesota Vikings 2024 season. It's one of my favorite bits to do with people, where we go through every game and you pick whether they are going to win or lose, and we come up with a final record. So we spent a lot of time yesterday talking about the over-under here, and we're going to talk also with Derek Stevens, who owns this place, about the NFC North over-unders and Super Bowl odds later on, so keep an eye out for that. But you're going to pick every single game, so I'm going to set it up, and you're just going to tell me Vikings win or loss, and you have to explain why you think they will win or lose. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's tee it up.
Can you handle this?
I can. I think so.
Okay, you seem a little tense this morning.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Got a long day ahead, though. We got to get out of here, travel, be home by 11 o'clock.
Yeah, we do. That's
I'm already
true.
plotting ahead.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do our best. So let's start out with the Vikings at the New York Giants, the New York football Giants, if you will.
I'm going to say 1-0. I'm going to say early September in the Meadowlands is not a bad way to start the season. I expect Brian Flores is going to make life miserable for Daniel Jones and the Giants, even though it's a year and a half too late for the Ed Donahue implosion in the 2022-23 playoff opener at US Bank Stadium. But I also think it's enough to take the edge off of Sam Darnold's return to MetLife Stadium, where, of course, he floundered with the Jets. It'll be ugly, but I see Minnesota prevailing and starting out 1-0.
Yeah, I feel the same way that, it's hard to get over what Daniel Jones has looked like really since he beat the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, what is his
That is his peak.
Right. What does his last 7, 8, 10 starts look like versus that against Ed Donatell? The Giants do have new pieces that could help them a lot. Malik Neighbors is one of them, but we're talking about a rookie making his first start against Brian Flores' defense that I think is going to be really tuned up to try to stop Malik Neighbors. That's going to be their main goal. They don't have Saquon Barkley anymore. The one thing I would be concerned about for the Vikings' perspective is the Giants' defense. That they have pass rushers, they have Dexter Lawrence, and the Vikings' interior offensive line has not looked any better. And so if there's one guy who could just absolutely blow this whole thing up, it's probably Dexter Lawrence, and then Brian Burns, who they traded for as well.
I think this is a must-win game. I hate to say that in week 1, but it does set the tone because we know the first month of the season is brutal. There aren't many layups at all, but I would say that if you're going to go into the Meadowlands on a rebuilding team, taking on a rebuilding team, and you want to kind of establish, what you're going to look like from kind of a retooled offense and then sort of a stopgap, got to make it happen defense, this is an opportunity to get one in the bag, because it's going to get so much more difficult in the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Right. It could be the confidence builder and give them a little bit of cushion, a swing game to where if you end up going 500 through the next stretch, it would be great for them. But if this one gets you one that's a little more cushion if things go wrong, starting with week 2 where they play the San Francisco 49ers.
Where it's probably going to go very wrong.
They were able to beat the 49ers last year, but that was one of Kirk Cousins' best games that we ever saw him play. And I don't know. I assume Brandon Ayuk is going to be coming with the San Francisco 49ers, but even if he's not, it's still a super talented team. And the only thing that gives you a chance sometimes with the 49ers is that they get banged up a lot. But it's only week 2.
Still early to get banged up.
Week 2, right, exactly. So last year, I think it was Debo was not playing last year in that game, and McCaffrey was questionable going in.
And he was not effective, I don't believe.
And this is going to be just week 2. So is this a loss for you?
Yeah, it is a loss. It's a tough home opener. Sam Darnold's vengeance tour is really starting early this year, but I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I don't expect him to be crowing after all. The 49ers are a tough home matchup. Probably as tough a home opener as you're going to get. The sting of 2 very close Super Bowl losses is kind of driving right now, and you have to have – I believe Kyle Shanahan's going to be kind of dialed in for this week. But you're right, the Ayuk drama, and then they've got some other pressing contract issues right now, which shows how tight that championship window can be, because it's not so much how you perform and missed opportunities, it's can you continue to pay some of these guys. And the 49ers are realizing right now that to maintain an elite roster, you got to win quickly. And I think this could be a make or break season for them. I kind of expect the 49ers to handle Minnesota, so we're looking at 1-1.
The only thing that I would leave the door open to is just regression from Brock Purdy. It is very.
We've been waiting for that, though.
We have, but it's very hard to back-to-back seasons average 9.5 yards a pass. That would buck all of history. I looked this up, every guy that's averaged over 9 yards a pass and what they did the following season, and no one was able to repeat it, not even Aaron Rodgers or Matt Ryan. I think better quarterbacks than Brock Purdy. Is there a way to figure? Yeah, well, we don't know yet. I mean, there was a 6th rounder once upon a time that people wondered if he was any good after winning the first Super Bowl, and Tom Brady just kept being great. So maybe Brock Purdy will be the same thing, and he has, I think, a mind for being great for Kyle Shanahan that is the most important part rather than the physical tools.
You climbed into Brock Purdy's head?
Yeah, I think so. The way that he processes the game, the way that he sees the field for someone who's not that big is ridiculous. And then he has a bit of a playmaker mindset. But one of the things that I notice in the numbers from Purdy is that he had more turnover-worthy plays than you would want, and kind of got away with some stuff last year. He will put the ball up for grabs, and if some of that stuff regresses on him, how often those balls were picked in this game specifically, I mean, that's what we're going to talk about with every game that they're not expected to win is the way that you have to do it is probably just getting turnovers.
Getting turnovers and almost playing a perfect game because there's no margin for error, and the 49ers are going to come in, I don't want to say looking for vengeance from last year, but they obviously remembered coming into the Dome being a little bit undermanned, or not the Dome, but U.S. Bank Stadium. And
the Dome, Mall of America Field.
Mall of America Field at U.S. Bank Stadium. I just feel like this is, look, if the Vikings take care of business in New York, that'll take the edge off the Week 2 loss that almost seems guaranteed.
Okay, 1-1, and they stay at home, face off with Danielle Hunter revenge game, Blake Cashman revenge game, Stephon Diggs revenge game, Jonathan Grenard revenge game. Is there any other?
That's a whole lot of drama for Week 3, right? And there's not a lot of bad blood with anybody in Houston.
You have to imagine that Stephon Diggs, no matter when he plays the Minnesota Vikings, is going to feel like he wants to shred them. But do you see that happening? Do you see the Vikings beating the Houston Texans at Metrodome?
Metrodome. I think Brian Flores can put the Vikings defense into, maybe positions to befuddle C.J. Stroud. I mean, because no way they can get into an offensive shooting match right now with that team and those weapons. I'll grant the Vikings an early upset here. I just feel like it'll be intriguing to see, the miracle worker and the sack master back at U.S. Bank Stadium, but I think all eyes are going to be on C.J. Stroud and whether this emerging star can kind of turn Houston into legitimate and viable Super Bowl candidates, and I think it'll probably take a little bit of the season to get back into their rhythm. They were more of a second-half team last year as well. I just feel like this is a home game that the Vikings can pull off an upset. I don't like their chances in the division games, and I'll get into that a little bit more as we go. This is an early upset opportunity, so we get them at 2-1.
2-1 start for the Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold would be very good. I am a little less confident than you on this, but I understand why you would pick one of those two games to be an upset, because you have back-to-back games at US Bank Stadium. Normally you wouldn't expect to lose both of those. And last year when we were picking schedules, we would have said they are losing to San Francisco when they came to US Bank Stadium and they pulled off a win there. I think when you're talking about the 49ers and Texans game, it's a 60-40 type advantage, which is about it's not as large as it gets in the NFL, but that's how I would put it for the 49ers and Texans. Can you be on the right side of the 40% of one of those two games? And then you're going to feel a heck of a lot better.
And that's a turnover-driven probably occurrence.
Yeah, right. And last year they were on the wrong side of all the turnovers to start the season. Can you be on the right side of them and pull off one of those wins? Now they go to Lambeau Field feeling pretty good about themselves. But do you feel pretty good about the Vikings at Lambeau Field at 2-1?
No, I don't really. Maybe somebody will pour one out in memory of where, Kirk Cousins' 2023 season and Vikings career ended shockingly maybe last October. But
it was shocking.
I don't know. The first big NFC North test goes to the Ascendants, I got to say, with Jordan Love and the home Packers. At least they won't have to, the Vikings won't have to suffer through an Arctic matchup as they usually have there. But I feel like this is where it's going to get difficult for the Vikings to not only make the playoffs but be viable just because of their division. I really have them going about 1-5 in the division. We'll break those down later, but I think this is going to be a very humbling season in the NFC North for the Vikings.
I can already see the comment section when it comes to that. I usually think that they're going to split the division games because they are closer. Even if you're not as good and you play a division team, the familiarity is so high.
That helps.
That usually there is a little bit more of a split. But this year, the other teams, two of them at least, are decidedly better and very much more in their Super Bowl windows than the Vikings, which would be understandable to pick them instead. The only edge here, as you mentioned, is that you're not going to Lambeau in January for once. Maybe Justin Jefferson will have the right cleats this time and everything will be okay. But okay, they take a loss. They start the season at 2-2, and then they get in their buggies and they fly out to London
again
to play the New York Jets. I know, again. Aaron Rodgers, what does he look like by week 5? This one is a very difficult one to project, but we do know Robert Saleh has an excellent. If you missed yesterday, couldn't pronounce Robert Saleh. But Robert Saleh has an excellent defense, which could cause a lot of problems for Sam Darnold, I think.
Of course it can, but I here's what I think. It's a tough opening month. I feel like, assuming Aaron Rodgers can survive his early comeback from that Achilles injury, I think Flores will be waiting to scheme him up pretty good. It should be a fun matchup, though. The biggest matchup, not even so much quarterbacks, is watching Justin Jefferson maybe go up against Sauce Gardner. It might not be as dramatic and entertaining as Double Doink was a couple of years ago, but I do see the Vikings prevailing here and moving to 3-2.
Okay.
And putting a bookmark on a very difficult opening stretch.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like if they are able to survive
3-2 going into the bye.
Season, at 3-2, I mean, that would be a best-case scenario for them with these teams to get a win against the Jets. I just have no idea what Aaron Rodgers is going to be. Because it's been so long since he played, and
he hasn't been around much this spring.
He also didn't look that good when he was playing last for the Green Bay Packers.
Correct.
It looked like his physical skill was not the same as it was during his peak, and he couldn't just kind of make it up back there and play his way. And I just think that worked for him once upon a time, and it certainly worked when Matt LaFleur got there. He does have at least one really good receiver and some other weapons. Is their offensive line good enough to protect him? I don't know. I'm not super high.
He just feels like he can plug in and play, like as if nothing has happened over the last year and a half. And as you mentioned, watching him get marched off Lambeau by the Lions in week 17, week 18 in January of 23, you felt like obviously it was the end of an era in Green Bay. But considering what happened 3 snaps into the season last year, you wonder, he's not the same player. He's not the same guy. And is he 40 yet? When is his is it this season?
Is he already 40? How old is Aaron Rodgers?
It's this calendar year, I believe. So, you haven't been relevant in a year and a half.
It says he is 40 years old and turned 40 in December 2nd.
So is he 40 going on 48?
Yeah, that's a good
like
question.
most quarterbacks, or is he 40 going on 32 like Tom Brady?
I mean, even when he was 38, he started to look like he was getting older. And when he was constantly talking about potential retirement, that's where the red flag always goes up for me. When you have a quarterback that is always thinking about retirement, at some point, even with Tom Brady, they just fall off the side of the earth. And the same thing happened with Peyton Manning. Like, is that this year for Aaron Rodgers? And I think to say yes would go, I think, with history, with the way that some of these quarterbacks have had their careers end. Even when you go back to a lot of legends, other than John Elway, who walked away after a really good year, but even someone like Dan Marino, 1 year too many. It's oftentimes 1 year too many, and the Vikings have to hope that that's the case, because if it's not, that's going to be a hard game. But okay, 3-2. What an ideal scenario.
Yeah, going into the bye, a lot of positive vibes coming into October, but an immediate test coming out of the bye.
And I'm sure that T.J. Hawkinson is coming back at this point. J.J. McCarthy is oh, no, he's not.
That would have been a tantalizing time to be considering him.
It really would have been interesting if he had been.
But at 3-2 with Sam Darnold, he's probably not in the mix right now.
I don't mean to keep going back to McCarthy's injury and how much it took away so many fun storylines. But if they were 3-2, but it was a Flores 3-2, and the offense ranked 28th, but they had gotten some turnovers, and Will Reichard made 9 field goals in a row or something to start the season, coming out of the bye would have been a very difficult decision. Do I keep going with Darnold? He's winning, but they're not playing that well. By the way, real quick Sam Darnold stat that I ran across. Tell me how this one sits with you last night. So I keep thinking about how can I reframe the Darnold discussion in any other way than just maybe. When he was in Carolina, he won 8 out of 17 games. What do you think Carolina's record was in 16 games that he did not play for them, whether he was either benched or injured?
16 games?
16 games.
4-15.
Okay, that does not add up to 16, but 4-12 does.
That's what I meant. Sorry.
4-12.
I was
you were actually completely right.
Yeah, I was thinking just 4 wins. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, 4. He was.
It's morning in Vegas.
It is right. They were 4-12 without him and 8-7 with him. That doesn't mean he played well. I'm just saying that he played better than anybody else did there, and that really tells you how bad that team was. That when they were throwing in Baker Mayfield, P.J. Walker, whatever, they couldn't win it all. And at least with him, he gave them a chance.
I don't know. Being king of the losers, I don't know how much you can put in that stock in that.
It was a very bad team that was near 500. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to talk you into this. Every comment section, I notice, keeps going back and forth between you're too positive or you're too negative, and I can't figure out what we are. But I guess when you say a team's going to win 8 or 9 games, you're both.
Yes, we're on the fence. We're straddling. Right. We're a little more optimistic than Vegas at 6.5.
Yes, we are. Okay, on to Week 7. The Detroit Lions at U.S. Bank Stadium is the name of the new stadium that they just
built.
I've
heard of that in 2016,
not too long
right?
ago.
I don't know. I mean, you think Hawkinson will be back? I mean, I think he's probably got it circled on the calendar. Obviously, he's lost to a torn ACL last Christmas Eve on a low hit by Kirby Joseph. I mean, is he going to be back to provide some more playmaking punch? I mean, they're certainly going to need it. I would say it's another, but I do believe it's another splash of cold water from an ascending division rival like the 49ers. The Lions are a complete team up and down the roster. NFC North games, again, I think they're going to be very humbling for the Vikings. I see Detroit prevailing in Minneapolis. Now we're at 3-3.
3-3, going out to Los Angeles, which means that all of you who are listening and watching, you're going too, probably. It'll be a takeover. We were there when they last played.
But it's a Thursday night game. You have to take some more paid time off a little bit around that. You might be able to make it work.
That's true. No,
it's going to be a short week.
That could be an impact, though. If it's a night game, you could fly out on Thursday.
Sure.
I'll probably do that.
Take the red eye.
On Thursday, during the day, I mean. And then you're only taking 2 days off of work. I mean, you can start planning this now. Folks, you can do this.
Listen to AAA over here. You can probably get you a deal.
It's still going to be a lot of purple, and there are a lot of California purple fans. So I think this one has a little less home field impact for the Rams. Nonetheless, a team that I expect to be good. You never know what level of banged up Matthew Stafford is going to be at that point in the season, because it's always
he's banged up in May.
Always. It's always every single year, it's Matt Stafford is battling through whatever injury. I don't know. Maybe he's just more honest about his injuries, and that's how everyone knows about them. I don't know. It's always a thing. Anyway, do you think that they'll win?
No, I don't think they're going to win. I think Stafford and that high-octane offense is going to be too much. But it will be an interesting homecoming, sort of, for Kevin O'Connell. Obviously, he won a Super Bowl with the Rams on that coaching staff. Primetime Thursday night. I'd give the Vikings a little bit more of a chance if they had a full week to prepare, but this just looks like another one of those superior opponents they're facing on the road. It's just going to be a tough lift, so I've got them going down to 3-4.
Folks, US Cellular noticed that the way we use our phones has gotten to be ironic. We try to put our phones down for dinner, but the menu is on a QR code. That's ironic. We hit like on social media posts that we don't actually like. Ironic. Which is why US Cellular has created Us Mode to help us reconnect with each other and use our phones less ironically. A phone company wanting people to use their phones less? Ironic. Let's find us again with Us Mode from US Cellular. Visit uscellular.com/built-for-us to get started. I am pretty high on the Los Angeles Rams this year, and part of it is because I thought that Stafford last season weirdly played some of his best football. He protected the ball much better than he usually has over his career. That was always my big criticism of him, is that as wonderfully talented as he is, and the highs are super high with Stafford, there would be a lot of turnovers and a lot of sacks that he would take. And he even did that in the year that they won the Super Bowl. He had a lot of sacks and turnovers. Then last year, I thought he was pretty sharp for them, and they weren't as good of a team as they can be now.
They weren't as healthy either.
Right. And Cooper Kupp is coming back. Nakua, we'll see about his health, but I think by that point he should be back and ready to go. That's a very difficult team to face. Their defense has improved. They've added some players over the last few years. I would agree with you that one is not an easy game, especially coming off of a home game against Detroit. And this is something that over the years, and this may be quack science, somebody who's good at picking games will have to let me know in the comments if this is quack science. I think when a team has a really difficult opponent one week and then has to go on the road the next week, that game is always really hard. Like it's a
Thursday night.
Playing a division opponent, right? Even just under normal circumstances, playing a division opponent, Detroit, those games are always crazy with the Vikings, and then going out somewhere a few days later, that is a serious disadvantage for the Vikings. Week 9, they return home to play Anthony Richardson and the Colts, and I saw people reacting to Anthony Richardson's preseason performance last night. You guys need some football games. You're just desperate. Just please let me react to something. There's nothing to react to there, but by week 9, I really want to know what Anthony Richardson is going to be, because right now I still have no idea.
No, and I feel like this is maybe finally a layup. It might be the only layup. I don't know if the Vikings are really going to be associated with too many layups this season. It was only 2 years ago, but it feels like an eternity since the Vikes rallied from that 33-point deficit to take down the Colts. But they're screwed if they fall behind by 2 touchdowns in this particular game. I think this is a game maybe for Darnold to shine if he's going to shine. It's kind of one of those, if he has 1 3 TD, 300-yard game, this will be it. And what will follow is all the resurrection headlines, because clearly this is the Colts team. If not rebuilding, they're certainly transitioning, trying to figure out what they have with a new head coach and a new, what they have at the quarterback position. So I feel like this is an opportunity for the Vikings. I don't want to say to blow anyone out, but I think this would be the one game they can handle somebody at home handily. So that gets them back to 500, 4-4.
I'm calling up my big sheet here of the Circa win-loss totals, because I want to know what they think of the Colts. They have the Colts as a 8.5 for over-under, giving them quite a bit more credit than the Minnesota Vikings. Hey, here's another stat I looked up last night. Can you tell I was just partying in Vegas looking up stats?
During a break at the craps table?
Oh, yeah, sure. That's definitely me. Quite a few teams that had 6.5 wins last year as their win-loss total, and I'm not trying to say this will mean anything to the Vikings, either made the playoffs or barely missed it, and the Colts were one of them, that they were a 6.5 win-loss team last year going in for preseason odds and ended up being one good Gardner Minshew pass away from making the playoffs. That may carry over for them with Richardson, that they feel like they're ascending more than a team that's fading back. But in my mind, they're one of the harder teams to project because we just don't know what Anthony Richardson's going to be.
Right. It's August 23rd.
His throwing did look a little bit still shaky to me. His running could be one of the best we've ever seen based on what he did in college in the early part of last season. I don't know what to make of that. Like, those guys can be very volatile. We don't know, is he going to get injured because he runs all the time and that kind of thing.
Whole new regime in town.
It is a really hard team to project, but I do like their head coach.
Yeah, the former offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Which in his name is?
You're going to fill me in on that.
Shane Steichen. It's the guy. You're
just teeing me up to be an idiot.
It's just raw. The Indianapolis, what percent? Remember that video that they did where they just showed people logos in Nashville and asked them who the teams were, and people didn't know like 90% of the logos?
I find that hard to believe.
That was the video.
The Colts is an iconic one. They've been around for 1,000 years.
I'm not saying you don't know the Colts, or people would know the Colts lineup necessarily, but I'm just saying that,
people don't even need logos, so therefore I don't need to know their head coach's
exactly.
name.
That's what I was.
I'll
know
it that day.
And Shane Steichen has to be the most anonymous head coach in the entire NFL, I think, unless you know who coaches the Titans.
It's not Mike Vrabel anymore.
This should have been the whole show.
Who's coaching who?
Who's coaching this team?
You don't understand. Like I after the Super Bowl, I kind of shut down until week 1.
Who coaches the Texans?
That guy.
That's great.
You don't need me for this kind of stuff.
The AFC South is just out of your mind entirely. So why don't we just have you?
Doug Peterson's in Jacksonville.
I was going to say pick the next game, which is from an AFC South team. But you've got them at 4-4 right now, heading into Week 10. I think that's right. Yep, 4-4. Again, maybe an ideal scenario considering how hard that run is of games, and now they go down to Jacksonville, a game that I can't wait to go down, play golf with our friend Paul Hodowanik. That's the plan. You going to Jacksonville?
I am going to Jacksonville.
Let's
it's sort
go.
of the road trip weekend for my St. Paul dads and our Dads Without Wives crew. We did pick Jacksonville for obvious reasons. We're going to rent a beach house for all the shenanigans. I think the Jaguars might be a little bit too tough to handle, though. Talented on both sides of the ball. I look at a bounce-back season maybe for Trevor Lawrence with Peterson coaching for his job, it sounds like, down there. I feel like this is a hiccup for the Vikings on the road. Too much weirdness might happen in that game because Lawrence is kind of one of those wild cards.
Oh, he's definitely a wild card. I feel like he is one of the hardest to predict on a weekly basis, where sometimes you'll watch him and you'll go, why isn't it better? And other times it is better. But the team around him, the coach, their offensive coordinator, I just don't think they're that strong. And this feels more to me like a game that
an
I would
opportunity
pick,
for the Vikings.
Right, and Brian Flores, that a game that I would pick as a win against Jacksonville, because they don't have the offensive players that terrify you. Unless Brian Thomas, their rookie wide receiver, becomes great. But Christian Kirk doesn't terrify you. Travis Etienne in the backfield. I think where if you were picking the schedule based on which receiver could slaughter your cornerbacks, this would not be one that I would pick against the Vikings. Now, if we're talking about a game like Houston, then yes, Diggs could do that to them. Or the Rams, yes, Cooper Kupp could do that to them. Amon-Ra St. Brown does it every freaking time they play each other.
Even before anyone knew who he was.
Less concerned with the Jaguars there for me, but a fair enough loss coming off of a big win at home. And now they go from Jacksonville to face Brian Callahan's Tennessee Titans. And Will Levis as well.
Yeah, I think at 4-5, this might be as winnable a game as the Vikings are going to have, certainly on the road, and I think they got to seize the opportunity. The Titans are rebuilding, and it looks like a prime opportunity. This looks like one of those games. We haven't even mentioned Aaron Jones yet, but I could see him rushing for 130 yards, and the defense to kind of play in a smothering style, low-scoring game, maybe that gets the Vikings back to 500.
Okay. They will go to the Bears after that. I don't have much more to say, except for there is a revenge game angle. Do you know what the revenge game angle is?
Why are you doing this to me? I don't pay attention to roster churn. Who's what? I don't know this So you're just going to make me look like a fool.
No, I'm not making you look like a fool. I'm informing the audience of the revenge game angle between the Vikings and Titans that maybe people haven't thought of. Which is,
educate me too.
Which is that you can't be this surly when we're at Circa hanging out in Las Vegas and we had a great dinner last night. Jeez. Sorry.
I just like talking in broad strokes and large grand themes. I don't drill into the roster churn of the offseason as much as I used to.
Who's the coach of the Raiders?
I can see him. I can see. They just all blend together now to me. I swear to God, dude. I'm not working this every day like I used to. I don't care anymore.
You're asking for this. Will Levis, the Vikings could have drafted him. That's the revenge game angle.
That's drilling deep.
Yep. See, that's why I wasn't trying to make fun of you with that. I was asking the audience.
But you didn't even say anything. Are they going to win this game?
Oh, yeah. Are they winning the game?
I said they are going to win it.
They are.
Yeah,
okay,
they're going to get to 5-5. Okay.
All right.
I got them at 5-5. Where are you at this point?
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and Google the coaches in the NFL. I think that your 5-5 would be a pretty solid outcome for this.
Yes.
And we have to expect, I'm sure that some Vikings fans would look at Jacksonville and Tennessee and say, we just win both of them. But it might be hard to win both when both teams are kind of in the same range as you. And I'm using the win-loss sheet, as an objective observer of the Circa bookmakers, that they would have an understanding better than maybe us of what teams' expectations should be. And so
Vegas always knows. They're like Santa Claus.
They're here for a reason. This place didn't get built on nothing. The Jaguars are at 8.5, so that's another kind of middling team. And the Titans are right with the Vikings, 6.5. So you could win both of those games. Those are two of the easier games on the schedule if we're given the win total.
Plus, we're just rooting for them to be relevant in mid to late November.
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, if this has happened, it means Sam Darnold's playing pretty good football. It doesn't mean that he is a superstar or that he's Kurt Warner or something, but it means that he's played pretty serviceable and solid football.
I always love that word, serviceable.
Yeah, that's the way to look at it.
It's a nice way of saying mediocre but not getting in the way.
Or that it's been amazing and terrible, which I think is more likely for Sam Darnold, that if we went game by game, well, against the Jaguars, he threw for 18 yards and 4 picks. And then against the Titans, 423 and 4 touchdowns. That seems like the type of year we're in for. And that's where whenever there's the fatalistic, this year doesn't matter, we'll just get on to the next season, I'm like, you don't want to see what kind of madness that this could happen. Anyway, they go to Chicago.
Yeah. Weird things in Chicago.
I used to always pick against them in Chicago because they just lost all the time, even to the point of complete absurdity. But that hasn't happened in recent years. They usually have actually done okay at Soldier Field.
I think that's more because of the Bears than anything the Vikings have done.
That is true. They were tanking at one point in Justin Fields. But we did a look at, I mentioned Paul Hodowanik when he was the intern for Purple Insider. He did an article where he looked at the Chicago games versus the spread and Vikings history and how many times there was upsets and shocking results. It was way, way, way more than you ever would have expected. So that was a real thing. It just hasn't been lately. They are a team just like the Vikings hoping to ascend. Circa has them at 8.5 for their win total. What do you think?
I think the rookie rust is probably going to be thoroughly knocked off by late November for Caleb Williams. It's probably going to serve notice with Jordan Love that these are the future dominant quarterbacks in the NFC North. Now, how Brian Flores counters against Williams' budding inexperience, I guess is a way to put it, could come a long way in dictating the outcome. But I see the Bears prevailing in maybe a sloppy, muddy late November game at Soldier Field. And this may be, well, at least in my opinion, this probably is the only divisional win for the Vikings this year.
Oh, really?
It gets them to 5 and 6.
So you think the Vikings will win?
No, I think they're wait.
You said both right there.
I did. There's a game that they come back to at the Metrodome, US Bank Stadium.
So
later.
are they winning or losing?
No, they're losing in Soldier Field. I
got
them at 5 and 6.
I wrote down the L there, and then I wrote down the W. Okay.
What did you write down?
5 and 6. I think that they will split with the Bears, but I don't know what. I don't know what.
You're not committing to which home or away yet?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not.
Well, I agree. They're going to split with the Bears.
You would pick Soldier Field as the place that they were going to lose. Like if that was just the obvious they're going to lose at Soldier Field. But I don't know what, at that point, Caleb Williams is going to be and how we'll feel about him. Is he turning the ball over like crazy, or is he playing extremely well and starting to take the next step? I don't know if it's an advantage or disadvantage to play Caleb Williams for the first time in the middle of the season. Or do they play the Bears earlier in the year? Yeah, that's right, the first time.
Yeah, it's a late Week 12 look.
Right, to not be able to know what he's going to be until Week 12 could either mean that he's losing confidence and getting beat up every week, or he's starting to click and get it, and that's bad for you because then you play them again a few weeks later.
Like 2 weeks later.
Week 13, they play the Arizona Cardinals, and they are a 6.5 team, just like the Vikings. How you feeling about Cardinals?
I like the match. Justin Jefferson versus Marvin Harrison Jr. I think is going to be something fun to watch. They're not going to impact. I mean, they will impact the game, but I don't think that's going to be the driving force. I think this is another opportunity maybe for Brian Flores to get it to climb into Kyler Murray's head with a lot of different things to keep him uncomfortable. I think the front seven makes the difference. I'm going to go with a win on this one at home against an inferior opponent. We're back to 500 again at 6-6.
You knew I'm going to ask you the coach of the Cardinals, right?
Ken Wisenhut. Joe Bugle.
Jonathan Gannon. Bruce Arians. Jonathan Gannon is the coach. Buddy Ryan, once upon a time, coached the was it the Phoenix Cardinals at the time?
Buddy Ryan, yeah. That's where he went from the Bears, I believe.
I think it was. So you just have them bouncing back and forth.
I do. I have it toggling all the way.
Yep. And
I don't see any big winning streaks or losing streaks.
I would say the same thing because there's just enough of games where they should have a good chance in this stretch where they go Colts, Jaguars, Titans, Bears, Cardinals. All of those are very winnable games. So if there's going to be a stretch, it has to be right there.
But they have to survive the first 4 weeks to make this relevant.
Yes. And we're going to do another episode where we answer fan questions, and I think that's going to be one of them about, like, if it goes a certain way, then what do they do early in the season when you know that the easier part of the stretch of the schedule is coming up in the middle. Week 14, now there's a revenge game. Week 14.
I've heard about this.
Okay, so you know this one.
This is going to be fun.
Who's the coach of the Falcons?
It's not Arthur Smith anymore.
It's not Arthur Smith. No, it's not Dan Reeves. It's Raheem Morris.
Formerly of Tampa.
Do you want me to keep doing this or stop doing this?
No, I don't care. I'm going to be wrong every time. I'm really just not that engaged. I'm admitting to you that I'm not engaged with all of this.
I know. Well, once that train got rolling, I just couldn't stop myself.
I'll know in week 13 what his name is, and I'll be able to type that in when I'm writing.
Okay.
After that game. But yes, as daytime melodramas go, it doesn't get much better than Kirk Cousins and the Vikings reuniting, kind of like that divorced spouses at a friend's wedding. It's going to be a little bit of an awkward dance. Bouquets are going to be thrown at each other all week long from Atlanta to Minneapolis. But I think the energy at U.S. Bank is going to be – it should be amped up, and I don't know what the conflicting emotions are going to be like. I'm kind of looking forward to what kind of reaction – again, we're week 14. Cousins coming back from that injury. We don't know what his status is going to be. I don't think we're going to see Michael Penix under center by then, but it's not out of the realm to rob us of this opportunity. Cousins has proved so durable prior to the Achilles injury that you can almost bank on him being there. But I just think this might be one of those Kirk games where he prevails and he has the sort of the cheeky milquetoast last word, maybe running to the locker room. You like that part too. I think it'll have people wondering a little bit about what might have been if he comes here and sticks it to the Vikings. But I think both sides are prepared to move on, and I think emotionally it'll be an interesting night.
Now, if you want to talk about bets to make, does Kirk Cousins say you like that at any point during his game against the Vikings would be a good bet? Like, do the mic'd up cameras show him throwing a touchdown, going like this and saying you like that?
You like that again.
I think that he will at some point say that. I'll make that bet. 9.5 for the Falcons seems pretty high to me for a team that hasn't been that great, but there are expectations for them with Kirk.
6-7 I got him at now.
Let's go to the Bears at Metrodome, week 15. So they're 6-7 after a loss to the Falcons. The morale is low, but the Bears come in, and what happens?
This is one of those where you could almost see it would have been J.J. McCarthy finally playing by now. You'd have a great rookie matchup and all kinds of thrilling back and forth, but we'll have to wait until 2025 with that. I just feel like the Vikings will be able to avenge the loss. They'll know Williams a little bit more. They'll know where he's at. I still think Chicago, among their 3 division foes, is going to be the weakest link, but it's not that weak anymore. But I do see Monday night, I think the Vikings will be up because they realize what's at stake, and every game is going to be hammer and tonging to the end of the season. So I see them getting their lone divisional win on this night.
Okay, so still 500 team going into the final 3 weeks, and we could talk about this on another show, but I think this would be a success for the Vikings. If they reach 7-7,
now you're in December playing meaningful games.
If the final 3 weeks were relevant, going against the Seahawks, Packers, Lions, 3 good opponents, then that's a win for this team to be in this position. So you've got them in a decent spot going to Seattle against their new coach. Don't worry about it. Geno Smith's their quarterback. So
Pete Carroll's not there anymore,
no,
right?
he's not. This would be a hard guess that it's Mike McDonald.
Yeah, look, this used to be a really spicy kind of a rivalry. Because the Vikings, every time they go to Seattle, something really ugly would happen, either rivalry-wise or trash-talking-wise or decisions made. It always felt like it was a grudge match, even though they're in they're not even in the NFC North, but it always felt like a NFC North kind of game. I don't see that happening this time. I think the Vikings are in a good position. It's still a tough place to play, but, I mean, the Seahawks are kind of rebuilding, and there's enough baling wire and duct tape, I think, to keep Geno Smith together by week, 16 are we at?
We are at week 16.
I think Darnold leads them to a kind of a gritty road win that will I think this may mark the peak of their playoff contention right here at 8-7.
Okay, 8-7. They get a big win in Seattle.
They have a winning record going into week 17.
And I think you just teased what you think is going to happen in the final 2 weeks. So you think they're going to lose both of these games to go 8-9?
I do. I think the Packers are going to be jockeying. I mean, if the Vikings are fighting for their playoff lives, the Packers are going to be jockeying for a higher playoff position in the NFC. And this is where I think the rivalry kind of, you see the fork in the road here. I think you've got an ascending team, with the sky's the limit expectations. I think the Vikings are kind of left in the dust in their year of transition. But I think it's a big day for Jordan Love and a crushing home loss, which there have been many against the Packers at US Bank Stadium. Doesn't kill their playoff hopes, but really it sets up a must-win game in Detroit, and we can go into that again, but now I think they're 8-8.
This is a thing that's happened to them a few times, is the late season game against the Packers where they're hanging around the playoff race, or they need it to fight for the division or for a home playoff game or whatever it might be, and they just don't pull it off. It happened in 2019. It happened in the Kirk got COVID game in 2021. Even 2022, they could have won the entire NFC. Didn't do it because they had that slippery, whatever thing happen out there. With the cleats.
Yeah, late season games at Lambeau.
Cleat gate or something, yeah. And then last year with Jaron Hall attempting to start against Jordan Love, and that didn't work out very good either. And then at the Lions, it's been difficult at Ford Field, 8-9.
Yeah, I have them at 8-9. I just feel like there's going to be so much more at stake for the Lions. It could be kind of an appointment TV type game. It's still TBA on the schedule, so on the flex schedule. Obviously a win would, I think, 9 wins would allow the Vikings to sneak into a wild card spot, but I just don't see it. The stakes and expectations are sky high for the Lions, who would be very well. They could be playing to clinch the division and home field advantage. I think Ford Field's going to be rocking, and we know exactly where the Vikings will stand in the NFC North on the outside looking in at 8-9.
Okay, well done. I had 9-8, but I needed to give them 2 division wins myself to get there. We'll see how it goes. We're going to interview.
The division record is going to determine everything for them.
No, I totally agree. But we're going to go because we got to interview the owner of Circa. So great job, Murph. I'm just giving you a hard time about the coaches.
Oh,
but,
I
well
could care
done.
less. Thanks, man.
I know, on the breakdown.
I'm here for higher level expertise.
Yes, exactly.